Hi everyone, this is Joe Rebelo, known to many of you on the internet and the martial arts world as KENPOJOE. Welcome to Elaborating Upon Kenpo. This is a series of videos where I'll be addressing different aspects regarding Ed Parker's American Kenpo and various questions that people have had over the years regarding Mr. Parker's system. In today's video, we'll be addressing self-defense techniques, specifically yellow belt required techniques, and for those of you who may learn the original syllabus, 3 techniques that were either taken out of the system, placed somewhere else in the system, or delineated or eliminated altogether. Those techniques are the second technique, which we originally know as Aggressive Twins, which was later replaced by alternating maces. The 5th technique, Spreading Branch, which later was replaced by Captured Twigs. And last but not least, Intellectual Departure, which later on was replaced by Sword and Hammer. Let's go into our first technique, the second technique required for the rank of yellow belt in the original material, Aggressive Twins. Aggressive Twins, the attack is a front 2-hand push. Now again, backing up a little bit, I'm going to be stepping forward with my right foot, executing my front 2-hand push. The exact identical attack that's taught in the later technique, alternating maces. Now, in this case, when we look at the web of knowledge, we deal with different types of attacks. Grabs and tackles, pushes, punches, kicks, holds and hugs, locks and chokes, weapons, multiple attacks or multiple attackers, and then the 9th category, combinations of the above 8 categories. In this case, let us go over Aggressive Twins. From a natural stance, step back with your left foot into a right neutral bow as you execute a right hammering inward block with your left hand in a checking position. Then execute a right side snapping knife edge kick to the right kneecap of your opponent. Then execute a left step through front thrust kick. No cross and cover out is required. Let's do that again from a side view, shall we? So from a natural stance, my opponent's executing a front 2-hand push. I step back with my left foot into a right neutral bow, bringing my right hand in a checking position as I bring my left hand up and execute a right hammering inward block. I then take my lead leg and execute a right side snapping knife edge kick or foot sword. Landing in my neutral bow, I then execute a left step through front thrust kick. No cross and cover out required. So the first question comes to mind. Why did they take it out of the system? Well, again, there was a couple of problems that were addressed. Again, this was just the second technique in the system, and many white belt beginners who didn't have proper control basically were blowing out somebody's knee. More importantly than that was what you'll see a theme that occurs with those 3 techniques and why they were taken out was the material presented was too advanced for the rank being taught. What do I mean by that? Well, we're talking about a left front thrust kick. People say, well, what's the problem with that? Well, you're not taught it. Not at yellow belt, not at orange belt. As a matter of fact, hold on a moment. This is a listing of the requirements for the rank of purple belt. And if you look closely, we'll move it adjusted here. Under kicks, what do we see? Front thrust ball kick. Now that may read reversed to you again with the image here, but the front thrusting ball kick is required for the rank of purple belt. Why? Well, simply stated, it's very easy for us as a white belt beginner preparing for yellow belt to execute a front thrust punch. We have a horizontal thrust, we have a vertical thrust. We have a horizontal snap. We have a vertical snap. We have an inverted horizontal thrust. By the way, the inverted horizontal snap is taught in a later technique, attacking mace, as well as our fundamental freestyle or sparring techniques in American Kenpo. But simply stated, it's easier to thrust a punch than a kick. Thrusting a kick requires a lot more control, a lot more focus, and our ability to hold our leg out, like so. For one brief shining moment, I'm thrusting that leg out, which is designed to drive my opponent back and away, creating distance. In the technique, I blow out his knee. Again, if I'm watching my opponent do this, and the attack, they step forward, I block their right arm, I kick out their right leg, and then I kick between the uprights, boom, and thrust to drive them back. That is the reactionary positioning that your opponent should do in the course of Aggressive Twins. Like we said, the first problem is a lot of white belt beginners and only the second technique, they do it in class and they'd kick too hard, or they'd hit with the blade of their foot, they'd hit directly on the hard bone, and perhaps they weren't used to striking with that particular weapon instead of kicking above the kneecap to where the muscle inserts into the bone. Again, Chuck Sullivan tells a horror story about how he injured his foot with a side blade kick and never wanted to do it again, depended on the side thrust instead. But again, thrusting a leg requires a lot more control, a lot more focus, and a lot more proper technique and balance to be able to thrust a kick, drive through with force, and then be able to retract it back and down. In Kenpo, we have a phrase. You can snap a thrust. You can't thrust a snap. Meaning a snap is in and of itself what it is. Out and back. It's a snapping action. You can't thrust a snap, but you can snap a thrust. Now, that being said, again, when do we learn that particular strike, the front thrust kick? Well, I'm an orange belt getting ready for purple. So why am I learning it as a white belt? So the technique was considered too advanced for white belt beginners. So instead, another technique, alternating maces, was substituted for it. And again, that's what you see in the Infinite Insights into Kenpo, volumes 1 through 5 from Ed Parker, specifically volume 5, which addresses all the major techniques. Well, there you have it. Our first video on our first technique that's no longer in the system. Hey, let's elaborate on something though. Ed Parker had a phrase. For every move, theory, concept, principle, and definition, there is an opposite and a reverse. Let's see where this is addressed in this technique. Step back with my left foot, executing a right inward block. Now, again, I use my lead leg to execute a side kick, lateral kick, with the blade or knife edge of my foot. So my foot is a horizontal position. The opposite of right is left. The opposite of snapping is thrusting. The opposite of striking to the side is striking to the front. The opposite of snapping, as we said earlier, is thrusting. So from here, we execute a step-through foot maneuver to execute that step-through front thrust kick, bringing our hands up, kick, lock, retract, and drop. And again, what do we learn? We learn you can snap a thrust. There you have it. Kicking with the blade of your foot as opposed to the ball of your foot, kicking with your right as opposed to your left, kicking to the side as opposed to the front, snapping a kick as opposed to thrusting a kick. There you have it. And the aggressive twins are a direct reference to the two hands aggressively attacking you. When Mr. Parker designed the system, he designed right, two hands, left, a hand transfer. A dead attack, a grab. Second technique, a semi-alive attack, push, and the third tack, a left roundhouse punch or straight punch, teaching us how to defend against a left hand, whether it be a circular or linear action. Well, I hope you've got something out of that technique, and we also have an instructional video if you watch my YouTube channel on alternating maces and detailing out all the methods of execution and everything that teaches you. Again, in relationship to every move, theory, concept, principle, or definition, there's an opposite and a reverse. One of my students, John Malloy, came up with a great acronym for it, and his acronym, My Tabby Cat Punches Dogs. Yeah, I know it sounds a little bit silly, but it's easy to remember. Move, theory, concept, principle, definition. My tabby cat punches dogs. Think about it. Until next time with our next technique, this is Joe Rebelo on elaborating upon Kenpo. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit a like, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell for getting notifications of our various videos. If you're watching us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any other social media, again, send us a like, put your comments below, let us know what you think. I value your opinion. Until next time, keep training and practice, practice, practice. See ya.